happening, everybody? Tim Kreitz coming at you on a beautiful West Texas evening. Should you lower your motorcycle? Are you unhappy with its stance or its ride height where you can't touch the ground? Well, I just lowered this bike 2 inches and I want to talk about my experiences. How I did it, why I did it, etc. You guys stick around.
You are watching the Tim Kreitz Adventures channel. Welcome.
If you follow this channel, you know that I have owned this bike for 3.5 years now, a little over 3.5 years now actually, and I've talked time and time again about the possibility of lowering it. I'm 5'9". I wanted to be a little bit more sure-footed on the bike when I was in a resting position or holding it up, stoplights, that sort of thing. And also, I could never really do what I wanted to do suspension-wise with this bike using the stock components. The only thing that can be adjusted on the suspension front or back is the rear preload. Nothing else is adjustable. The front forks are completely non-adjustable. So I never could pull the chassis into what I felt was a reasonable balance. So I thought, what the heck, man, I might as well lower it. And so I bought the T-Rex Racing lowering kit. It consists of a lowering link and a side stand, because obviously after you lower this bike 2 inches, that obviously makes the stock side stand unusable. The lowering link goes in very easily. I'm not even going to show you how to do it. I thought about doing a how-to on this, but T-Rex, they have on their YouTube channel a very good walkthrough on how to replace the lowering link and lower the suspension. I'll include that in the links below. Overall, I'm pleased with it. The chassis actually is in better balance than it was before. I know that sounds crazy, you may not believe me, but for me it works better. I lowered the front suspension about 9/10 of an inch on the fork tubes. I didn't want to go any lower than that, simply because I was starting to lose too much ground clearance, and I was also concerned with bottoming out the front shocks and maybe hitting the front fender with the headlight, or maybe hitting the rear fender on the bottom of the radiator. Now, I haven't had any problems with that. I've done my best to try to bottom this thing out, and I haven't been in a situation where it completely bottoms out, but even with a lot of travel, I still have plenty of room there. It did a good job, and I really like the bike a lot better. Now, there are some obvious disadvantages to doing this, and there are some dangers that you want to look out for anytime you lower a bike. Let's go for a ride and we'll talk about it. If you have an FZ-07, you know that the stock suspension and the stock ride height can cause the front end to get light and the bike can get a little twitchy at times. Not anymore. One of the things that this lowering link kit corrected was the flightiness of the front end, which of course couldn't be adjusted away. So what I ended up with overall was a motorcycle that's actually more stable than it was stock. But I paid a price for that. Obviously, I paid a price in ground clearance. I can't corner as deeply as I used to. I'm going to scrape pegs faster than I did before. Also, because we've changed the geometry of the motorcycle suspension, including the rake and trail even slightly from an effective standpoint, the bike turns slower. It requires more effort to turn the bike, and with that effort you actually get a wider turning diameter or turning radius, depending on how you want to look at it. Still, it's sure-footed. In some ways more sure-footed than it was. Another thing that I consider to be a positive about installing this kit is the fact that this thing doesn't want to wheelie quite as easily anymore. In fact, you've really really got to work to get it to do a power wheelie in first gear. Now, I consider this to be a benefit. You may not. If you have an FZ-07 and you like to wheelie it, because it is a very wheelie-prone motorcycle on its own in stock configuration, you will lose that benefit, or you will lose that dynamic of how the bike rides. It doesn't matter to me. 20 years ago I thought wheelies were totally awesome and I did them anywhere, but the novelty is kind of gone on that. So now let's talk a little bit about the realities and the practicalities of lowering a motorcycle. If you're a short person, or if you're not completely sure-footed, or if you can't handle the weight and take responsibility for the mass of the motorcycle with it in its stock ride height and it needs to be lowered, you've got to lower it. That's just all there is to it. I'm with Dave Moss when he says your safety comes first on that sort of thing. Being safe on your motorcycle on the street is better than being able to cut a fast lap time. So I didn't lose anything practicable by lowering the bike 2 inches. In fact, I gained a lot. The bike is very sure-footed now. It's more sure-footed than it was, and even though I have to work harder to turn it, and I can't turn it quite as hard, can't lean it quite as much, I think that's a pretty good trade for a street motorcycle. This thing will never be on a racetrack. So if the big question on your mind is, should I lower my motorcycle with one of these lowering kits? There are a lot of companies making them in different configurations and sizes and heights. My answer to you is, if it is for safety reasons, if it's going to make you safer on the motorcycle, yes, you should do it. It shouldn't even be a question. Yeah, you're giving up a little bit of performance. You're giving up optimal geometry, but you're gaining confidence, and you're gaining actually more fun. You're going to enjoy your motorcycle more. One last piece of advice, and then I'll end the video. If you make changes to your bike's ride height, steering geometry, suspension, etc., and it handles worse, or anything happens that frightens you, or the bike becomes unmanageable in any way, you need to stop riding it. Either return it to its configuration that it was in before, or take it to a technician, someone who's qualified to help you with it. Don't ride it if things get worse. Now, in this day and age, as good as motorcycle suspension is, you'd have to get things pretty wacky, I think, to be in that position, but it can happen. So be wary of that. Try different settings, try different configurations, and find what works best for you. And then when you find it, enjoy your motorcycle. We'll see you guys next time. Take care of yourselves.